Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are doing another tag video. This one is called the Hammer Dracula tag, based on the Hammer Dracula franchise, one of my favorite horror franchises of all time. So for me, it's right up there with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. So yeah, it's really big. So this is 10 questions, and this tag was created by me. So number one is, what is your favorite Hammer Dracula film? So for me, it's definitely Horror of Dracula. It's the original film. It's what put Christopher Lee on the map. And it's such an amazing role for him as Count Dracula. I love Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. I love all the iconic imagery in the film, the great performances. I love the gothic atmosphere. I just love everything about it. It's my favorite vampire film. It's my favorite Hammer film. It's my favorite Dracula film. So number two is, the first sequel, Brides of Dracula, did not star Christopher Lee, but is considered one of the finest Hammer films. Would you have cast Lee in the film, or do you think it's fine the way it is? So for me, I think it's fine the way it is. I feel like it stands on its own, and you do have Peter Cushing returning as Van Helsing, so that brings to the weight, to the credibility of it. And I just think it's an amazing film. It's just awesome, and if Lee was cast in it, I don't think he would fit right in it. Especially if he was Dracula. I can't see Dracula chained up in his room by his mommy, you know. We've never heard anything about Dracula's mother in the history of Dracula. And if he played the other role, it wouldn't make sense either, because everyone would be like, why isn't he Dracula? It's Christopher Lee. So that's my answer on that one. Number three is, Dracula dies in every film in the franchise. What is your favorite Dracula death? So for me, it's going to be Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. So when he falls off the cliff and he's impaled by that huge cross that was used by the Monsignor, the holy man, used to block the doorway of the castle so no one could get in. So yeah, to me it's so symbolic, you know, that's the symbol of good, the symbol of Jesus. So that's perfect. Number four, in Dracula Prince of Darkness, Christopher Lee has no dialogue. Do you think the film would have been better if he had lines, or is it fine as it is? So I think it would be better if he had lines in the film. Even though he does such a menacing performance in the film, even without lines, I think it would be that much better if he had some lines. Plus, Christopher Lee has such a great voice, such a powerful, commanding voice. I want to hear him talk, you know. So definitely it would be better for me if he had lines. So number five is, what is your favorite Van Helsing moment in the franchise? For me, it's when he kills Dracula in Horror of Dracula. I love when he jumps up and grabs the curtain, rips it down, and exposes the sunlight. And then he grabs two candlesticks and puts them together as a crucifix. And then Dracula, you know, turns into ash and dust, you know. It's awesome. It's classic. So number six is, who is your favorite actor / actress in the Hammer Dracula franchise, aside from Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing? So for me, it's going to be Veronica Carlson from Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. She's a staple in Hammer films. She's done several other films like the Frankenstein series. And I think she does a fine job in Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, even though she is kind of the typical damsel in distress. She just does a lot with it. She does such a great job. Number seven is, what is your favorite Dracula kill in the franchise? So for me, it's going to be from Scars of Dracula, one of the most underrated in the franchise. It's when he kills his vampire servant, Tanya, with a knife. He stabs her viciously and brutally with a knife, which is very uncharacteristic and out of character for Dracula. So that's why I thought that was interesting, you know. It's like outside the box. So number 8 is, what is the worst Hammer Dracula film? So for me, it's definitely Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. You got these kung fu guys, you mixing kung fu and horror together. It's like such a bizarre, weird mix. And then you got Peter Cushing returning as Van Helsing, and he's like in the middle of all this madness, you know. And somehow he still manages to be great. No matter what he does, he's great. It's actually, I don't hate the movie. It's actually fun, but it's just too silly, you know. Number 9 is, what is your favorite Dracula moment in the franchise? So for me, it's when he first reveals himself as a vampire in Horror of Dracula. So when the vampire woman tries to plead with Jonathan Harker in the film, she's like, "Oh, please help me, you must help me." And then once he turns his head and exposes his neck, she like stares at his neck ready to bite him, you know. And that's when Dracula comes out, you know, that classic image. And it's so iconic, I love it. And you see the blood coming from his mouth because he just came back from a fresh kill. So awesome, I love it. So number 10, in Dracula AD 1972, they brought Dracula into the modern age. Do you think that was the right choice? If not, what would you do differently? I think it was the right choice because they were competing with American audiences, and the American films that were coming out in horror at that time were a lot more realistic. They were not doing the old gothic monsters and vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. They were going into more realistic, real-life kind of threats. So that's why I feel Hammer brought Dracula into the modern age, you know, to compete with America, and I thought that was the right choice because they had done to death the old period piece movies, you know, the old gothic castles and stuff like that. So I feel like the franchise needed to be kind of rejuvenated and brought more modern, you know. And I enjoy the film. They get a lot of hate for that, though. So does the Satanic Rites of Dracula, which I also really enjoy. So that's my answer on that one. So guys, that's it for the Hammer Dracula tag. So now it's my turn to tag some people. I'm going to tag people that I think might actually do it. I know my circle of YouTube friends, some of them don't really care for Hammer. They don't care much for the Hammer Draculas. So I'm going to tag some people I think might actually do it. So the first person I'm going to tag is HorrorMetal. I know he's going to do it. I'm going to tag the Late Late Horror Show. I'm going to tag Dave Maggot, Bronco Juggalo Talks Movies, Horrific Nightmares JM, Movie Freak, Horror Fan 34, The Horror Miser Monty G. I know he'll want to do that. Blue Terror, Bushman Blue, Dr. Movie 91, and Last Venom 76. So guys, answer the call and do the Hammer Dracula tag. So again, this one was created by me. So guys, get on it. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.